Hi everyone, and welcome to Healing My Spirit with Natalie. Today I'm going to be talking about negative entity removal using spirit releasement therapy. Now, some people are very much aware of negative entities or negative attachments that can attach onto a person at any point in their life. Some people hear voices, some people feel bodily sensations. Sometimes people might see different faces over their shoulder in the mirror for a brief nanosecond. Some people have a range of paranormal experiences, but for the most part, many people are simply unaware that they even have an attachment. Now, according to psychiatrists who developed some of these methods, up to 70% of the people around the world actively have negative energy attachments onto their body, to their auric field, and they kind of exist in your subconscious, if you like. Now, what are these negative energy attachments? For the most part, they are earthbound lost souls. They were human, they may have died very suddenly, and they were confused, or they were stuck in some kind of intense emotion at the time of their death. And they did not see the light. They did not see that tunnel of light that's so frequently described in near-death experiences. And so they did not go to the light, and they often just didn't know where to go or what to do, just in this state of confusion. And for them, it's a timeless state. They're constantly just stuck in that emotion of how they died or the events around their death, which usually, for the most part, were either traumatic or perhaps they didn't want to leave a loved one who was still left behind. Now, entities can then attach onto someone who kind of matches their vibration. Might be the same emotion they were experiencing at the time. It might be an opportunistic attachment, someone who was in the area and just happened to be around when they passed away and who was experiencing a similar emotion. Or a lot of times they attach to family members through some kind of loyalty or intention to help, or sometimes an intention to make that person suffer. Now, psychiatrists who develop this work also believe that 100% of people, all of us, have been affected at some point in our life via a negative energy attachment. Now, some people might think, well, if it's an earthbound lost soul, why is it a negative energy attachment? Well, it's a negative energy attachment because when they attach onto you, they're kind of draining your life force energy that you as a living incarnate soul have and emanate. And also, they are bringing with them any emotional, physical, or mental residue from the life they just had. So if they're stuck in that death trauma and they're really angry, they will bring that anger in and kind of inflict it on the host. The host then experiences that anger. And this might be why some people have outbursts of anger, sudden anger. They can't really explain where it comes from. Perhaps they have an awareness that it kind of comes through them. It might not really belong to them, but they can't quite put their finger on it. Most people are simply even unaware that their amplified emotions are actually an entity's emotions and not their own. The other case is how they died, or any health conditions that the entity had in their life ends up being inflicted on the host. So if someone was, say, stabbed in the heart or had any other kind of injury on their body, the host then might experience those symptoms from time to time. It might be the niggling knee that the doctor just tells you there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but you still have pain, or some other kind of body problem which may have just been ruled out by doctors as being somatic. In other words, it's all in your head. But really, it could belong to a negative entity, and it's the symptoms of how they died. Other opportunities for attachment include if people have dabbled in black magic, or if they've used a Ouija board. These are areas that provide an opportunity for attachment, particularly if a person has not been using the right kind of safety protocols, and a Ouija board is like an open door and is not very safe because any kind of entity or energy can come through. And this is only sort of my opinion and the opinion of others who have created these methods. Definitely, some people may have their own successes with Ouija boards, but I'm just reporting on sort of my experiences and the information that I've learnt doing these modalities. Certainly, sometimes people have bad experiences after using a Ouija board. They might suddenly become sick, suddenly be having more accidents, all of a sudden, bad luck, and sometimes paranormal experiences. So it's kind of not something you really want to mess with. And it'd probably be better if you weren't using that method for spirit communication. Now, a lot of people, we're just not taught this information in kind of Western society, that these entities exist. I guess people kind of think about possession and that kind of thing. And that's definitely a real phenomenon that occurs. And certainly some prominent psychiatrists who work in this area recognize that about 50% of kind of mental health problems are actually from negative energy beings rather than organically present in a patient. Now, a lot of doctors kind of dismiss this information and simply aren't believing of it. It does take kind of, I guess, an awareness of things we can't explain in this world. But it is a real reality. And certainly when you start working in this area and conversing with entities through a client, and finding out their story, how they died, why did they attach, what was their intention and motive, you find that this is absolutely a real phenomenon. Now, it is possible to remove these entities. I guess classically when we think of that, we think of possession, and we think of sort of Catholic priests, kind of casting out these kind of possessions. Because if you just simply remove an entity, it can simply reattach, or it can attach to someone else. For an earthbound entity, there needs to be some kind of resolution for the emotional trauma they are suffering so that they willingly then go to the light. And this is the resolution that ultimately is what we're looking for when we do this particular type of modality. Now, there are many other healing areas and modalities, such as sound therapy, Reiki, kinesiology, so many other healing methods, crystal healing, that can also remove entities. This isn't the only one. This is the one where you can obtain that extra information as to the entity's story, how they have affected you mentally, emotionally, or physically, and what was their intention for attaching. Now, for some of these entities, they're actually attached in a past life, and you have been carrying them around for multiple past lives. Now, some people might say, well, how is that possible? You're meant to go to heaven, go to the light. Surely you're pure in that state. Yes, that's true. These entities will unattach at the time of your death. If you go to the light and are able to break away from them, they go to like a waiting place, a midway place, and then they kind of wait for you to reincarnate back, and they find you and go and reattach. This is the case particularly if it's a family member or someone who knew you or had some kind of connection with you in a past life, and they had a strong intention for connecting to you for a specific reason, usually to make you suffer or to get revenge. That kind of scenario, that is common. So for some people, we're actually resolving past life trauma for the entity where the client was actually involved. So when we do this work, the client actually ends up seeing scenes of a past life where they themselves are involved. So that's really powerful. It's kind of like an adjunct to traditional past life regression therapy, or it's kind of like an advanced area of it. Now, the other scenario is obviously a demonic being or a dark force entity. Now, some people might perceive these as dark blobs, dark shapes, dark clouds, something that looks really dark and has energy. Some people also see figures such as I think it's the tall hat man or the old hag. There's different figures some people describe. Some psychics are able to see these beings. But for the most part, they just kind of look like a dark energy blob. Now, also, these beings are too liberated, if you like, or rescued and returned to the light. And this is again a powerful kind of technique, because for some earthbound souls that are attached, they're actually kind of held in place or influenced by a dark force entity. So it can become quite complicated quite quickly. So knowing the right procedures for this kind of therapy is really important, but it can have profound healing for the client. They may have complete resolution of symptoms. It might be slower over a few months, or it might be even slower still over like a year. But for the most part, most people notice an immediate difference or change. Now, symptoms of a negative energy attachment might include excessive fatigue with no organic cause. They might have emotional outbursts that don't really feel like they're coming from them. They may hear voices in their head or through one side of their ear. Other symptoms include sudden desires to drink excessive alcohol or take drugs or even smoke. Behaviours that perhaps aren't yours and you've never had really much of an interest in. Also kind of, I guess, sexual promiscuity is another symptom, particularly if you've kind of had no history of that kind of behaviour and it just all occurs all of a sudden. Sometimes people feel different after, say, having major surgery when they've had a general anaesthetic. That's an opportunity for attachment when you're kind of not in your body. If you drink a lot, or there's periods where you're on drugs and you lose consciousness. In that point of losing consciousness is also an opportunity for attachment. Periods of intense emotions, such as witnessing or being involved in violence. That is also an opportunity for attachment. Any of these emotions, kind of negative emotions we experience to an extreme level, violence, rage, fear, anger, resentment, anytime we experience those kind of intense emotions are also opportunities for attachment. If you kind of are in a more positive mind frame and mindset, it is less likely that an entity can attach because they kind of need like a way in, if you like. And when we have moments of weakness, such as these intense emotional states, or through drug use or excessive alcohol, loss of consciousness, they're also opportunities for attachment. Now, energy beings can attach at any point through conception to death. So for some people, they actually can have a lot of entities because they take up no space. They take up no physical space. So I've been treating a number of clients lately, and most of them have multiple entities. It's not just kind of one. It's kind of, I guess, a rarer, less common scenario. The most common scenario is most people have that I've been treating have multiple. And we sort of have to go through, one at a time and find out the story. So for some people, if they have spirit releasement therapy, they may require multiple sessions because obviously there's only kind of so much you can do in one session. So this is really powerful work. It's also kind of spiritual work because we do call in a lot of angelic assistance and help from the light to carry out this work. But it is really important work, I think, for people to clear themselves, particularly when other methods might work to a point but don't work fully. I'm actually seeing a lot of clients coming to me now as their higher selves want to clear them, paving the way for ascension, is what I believe. They've had a blockage or they've felt stuck in their life for sometimes multiple lifetimes. And the higher self feels like now is the time, as ascension is approaching for the planet, to shift this blockage to pave the way for ascension, but also to pave the way so that the person can continue on with their life plan that they'd planned before they came into this lifetime. Now, unfortunately, that's one of the side effects of negative entities. They can, as well as kind of suck on your life force energy and interfere in your life, they can actually kind of prevent you from achieving some of the targets you'd had in your life plan or some of the karma that you had planned to balance. Either way, it's an interference and it's a violation of your free will. And this is why a lot of higher selves want this removed. It doesn't suit the soul's purpose anymore to have this blockage. There are some instances where I have encountered where it is actually part of the person's life plan or soul plan to have entities as some kind of karmic balance. But for the most part, it is not part of a person's life plan during the incarnation to have entities. So they sort of come to me because they want a blockage cleared, or they want this stuckness kind of removed. And that's what this kind of burden of having entities is. It's a drain on the life force and interference and violation of the person's free will. So kind of many factors there. And it's different for every person, obviously, because of the context of a person's life and the nature of their life plan and what they had planned for this incarnation. Thanks so much for watching my video, and I hope you've learnt about negative entities and dark force entities and have a little bit more of awareness of it. I'd like to thank Ren Woodland for the drawing in the beginning part of the session. This is a child who's a psychic medium, and this is their interpretation of what they see when they see a person. They see their spirit guides next to them, their angels behind them, and if they do have any entities, they'll appear as kind of dark splotches in their field somewhere, or sometimes on the ground behind them. I do spirit releasement therapy. I offer it on my website. If you look in the links below this video, you can see my 2 websites. Healing My Spirit with Natalie, or In Touch Hypnotherapy is my business. And I can do spirit releasement therapy online or in person. Generally, sessions range 2 to 3 hours and can be done anywhere in the world. Thanks so much for watching my video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.